Welcome to the Nation of History channel. Be sure to subscribe and like so you don't miss out on more videos like this one. Joe Arridy became known as the happiest prisoner on death row after giving away his toy train before his case ended in 1939, an episode that drew harsh criticism of the death penalty in the United States, especially when vulnerable people were involved. Martha Beck and Raymond Fernandez became known in the United States between 1947 and 1949 for a series of crimes against lonely women they met through personal ads, shocking the country after Janet Faye was found in the basement of a house in Queens, New York. Known as the White Mouse by the Gestapo, Nancy Wake stood out in 1945 as one of the Allies' leading spies in World War II, considered the most wanted woman in Europe, a symbol of resistance against the German regime, and an example of female courage. Johnny Clem, known as the youngest non-commissioned officer in United States Army history in 1862, represents the early involvement of young people in the American Civil War, a conflict that reshaped United States social and political structures, especially around slavery. German boys find fun climbing on a damaged tank, a common scene in Germany at the end of World War II in 1945, when the German government collapsed and cities suffered severe damage, reshaping childhood and daily life. Marilyn Monroe's rise on Long Island, recorded in 1949, marks an early phase of her career as she began gaining attention in the United States, reflecting post-war cultural and style shifts that would reshape beauty standards. Soviet women snipers were vital on the Eastern Front during World War II, playing prominent roles between 1941 and 1945, gaining broad recognition and reinforcing women's leadership in Soviet resistance strategy. Soldiers gathered in a trench celebrate Christmas during World War I, fought fiercely between 1914 and 1918, when moments like the famous Christmas truce created brief flashes of solidarity between enemies amid the hardship. South Vietnamese Army soldiers used elephants to patrol the jungle in 1962, supporting efforts against communist guerrillas early in the Vietnam War, a conflict marked by North Vietnamese resistance and growing United States involvement. Kurdish fighters in Iraq in the 1970s were at the center of a long struggle for autonomy against the Iraqi central government, especially after the 1970 agreement failed, intensifying conflict and shaping Kurdish resistance for recognition. Major Dick Bong became one of the best-known United States aviators of World War II, especially in the Pacific Theater, earning high recognition and boosting Allied morale against Japanese imperial expansion. Students walking through downtown Kabul in 1981 witnessed a period of deep change in Afghanistan, marked by the Soviet occupation that reshaped social life, pushed education reforms, and sparked tensions that would define the country's future. During World War I in 1915, the soldier Hackett had his life saved by a Bible, a memorable survivor story showing how personal items could offer spiritual comfort and, by chance, become life-saving. Unemployed workers sleep in the bandstand at Queen's Park around 1938, in a period shaped by the Great Depression that began in 1929, when the global economic crash caused mass unemployment and worsened urban living conditions in many countries. Known as the Puddle Jumper, this 1933 photo highlights city life during the Great Depression, when millions felt the effects of the global crash that began in 1929, reshaping habits, fashion, and urban living. In 1936, as the United States dealt with the Great Depression, rural Texas remained shaped by cotton farming, central in Kaufman County, where plantations carried long ties to racial segregation and deep social inequality. People in rural Polish villages between 1980 and 1989 kept agricultural traditions while living with shortages under the local socialist system, which limited access to consumer goods and food, a situation worsened by economic crisis that pushed self-reliance. A German submarine beached at Hastings, Sussex in April 1919 showed World War I's impact on England's coastal communities, marking the war's aftermath of technological change and tighter post-war naval vigilance. Soldiers of the 45th Infantry Division, known as the Thunderbirds, crossed the Atlantic to Sicily during World War II, landing shortly before the Allied invasion that opened the Italy campaign, crucial for weakening the Axis in the Mediterranean. Venus, the bulldog mascot of the destroyer HMS Van Sittart, symbolized shipboard companionship on British vessels during the World War II, when mascots helped boost crew morale on long, dangerous Atlantic missions. Marilyn Monroe became one of the 20th century's biggest cultural icons, especially in 1962, the year her story ended early, a moment that deeply shaped pop culture and fueled debate about fame, public exposure, and women's roles in Cold War Hollywood. Marilyn Monroe, a film icon and pop culture symbol, appears in 1953 exercising at the Bel Air Hotel during a time when Hollywood pushed beauty standards and physical fitness for female stars, setting new ideas of body and style in the 1950s. American workers pose inside a steel pipe section weighing about 99,208 pounds, highlighting a key part of building the Hoover Dam in 1935, a monumental project that boosted the American West by controlling the Colorado River and expanding power generation. The tent scene in Orlando, Oklahoma Territory served as the official registration point for 36,000 people on September 15, 1893, marking one of the largest public land runs in history and a key step in settling the area and turning it into a United States state. The Wives Wanted advertisement reflects rural settlement life around the turn of the 20th century in the United States, when westward expansion created mostly male communities searching for wives, showing the social impact of settling a vast territory. Howard Hughes stunned the aviation world by flying the massive Hughes H-4 Hercules, known as the Spruce Goose, on its first flight near San Pedro, California in 1947, showcasing peak aeronautical engineering right after World War II. The Graf Zeppelin airship became a symbol of 1930s technological progress, when crowds in London gathered in Hounslow to witness its unplanned landing in 1931, reinforcing public fascination with flight and shaping Europe's shared imagination. A poster featuring Frankenstein and billed as Third Horrifying Week points to the cultural impact of the 1931 film in the United States, whose extended run reflects the rise of horror movies as a popular entertainment phenomenon. John F. Kennedy Jr. is seen in the pilot's seat of Marine One around 1963 during his father's presidency and intense Cold War tension, when the Kennedy family symbolized hope and modernization in the Western world. John F. Kennedy spoke in the Appalachian Mountains in 1960 during his presidential campaign, drawing attention to the region's chronic poverty, spotlighting inequality in the United States, and helping shape public policies aimed at reducing social exclusion. John F. Kennedy, then a senator and future United States president, became a symbol of renewal when he was elected in 1960, ushering in a new era of political communication that influenced social habits and the public imagination in the next decade. During a 1975 state visit to the United States, Japan's Showa-era emperor visited Disneyland, a symbolic moment of strengthening diplomatic ties after the deep scars of World War II. Known worldwide for the home run record, Hank Aaron surpassed Babe Ruth on April 8, 1974, becoming baseball's new home run king, inspiring generations because the achievement came without scandal or illegal drug use. Ham, the chimpanzee trained by the National Space Program, took part in crucial United States tests in 1960 before his suborbital flight, becoming the first primate launched into space and a key step for the space race and safer future crewed missions. Kenny Baker, performer of the beloved droid R2-D2, takes a break during the filming of Star Wars, the 1977 cultural phenomenon that revolutionized movies with innovative special effects and set a new bar for science fiction. Vladimir Lenin, leader of the 1917 Russian Revolution and founder of the Soviet state, spent his final days in Gorky after severe physical decline, ending a path that deeply changed world history by establishing the first communist government. Bread preserved under Vesuvius ash offers a rare witness to daily life in Pompeii, buried on August 24, 79 AD, when the eruption drastically changed the region's history, freezing customs and abruptly ending the Roman city. The ancient Egyptian tunic, about 4,500 years old, now preserved at the Egyptian Museum in Cairo, is a rare textile witness of ancient Egypt, showing advanced linen making as early as the first pharaonic dynasties and its value as a marker of social status. High school girls in the United States challenged strict dress rules in 1940 that banned women from wearing long pants, anticipating debates about personal freedom and gender equality, and symbolizing a gradual shift in social customs. Women's bowling teams grew popular in the United States in the 1940s as women's participation in sports and social life expanded under World War II's impact, strengthening post-war demands for greater rights and visibility. The 1950s in the United States saw the rise of the so-called New American Woman, reflected in capri pants in city settings, a style encouraged by post-war cultural change and symbolizing greater freedom for women. Brigitte Bardot, at 18, danced on Paris rooftops in 1952 during France's cultural revival after World War II. French cinema was beginning to influence global trends, with Bardot emerging as an international icon of youth and freedom. 2 years after winning Miss Italy and rising as a major European film star, Sophia Loren appears in 1955 with her sister Maria Ciccolone, highlighting family ties amid post-war cultural energy that was central to Italy's social rebuilding. Lynn Frederick gained fame in the 1970s during major shifts in British pop culture, standing out for her work in British film and for her marriage to comedy icon Peter Sellers, which expanded her international profile. Kurt Russell, then a young rising actor, appeared alongside Elvis Presley in the film It Happened at the World's Fair, released in 1963, during a time when Elvis was cementing his Hollywood image and American movies were spreading worldwide. Businessman Harlan Sanders built the Kentucky Fried Chicken brand in the United States by popularizing his fried chicken recipe, promoted with the slogan, "It is finger lickin' good," turning his restaurant into a post-war symbol of global fast food and shaping 20th century eating culture. Drive-ins spread across the United States in the 1950s, becoming a symbol of quick service and car-centered leisure for the middle class, with places posting rules like no tipping and promoting efficiency through automated systems. The Boo-Koo hamburger stand in Harlingen, Texas, highlights the United States economic context between the 1930s and 1940s, when low prices such as hamburgers for 5 cents reflected survival strategies during the Great Depression and the growing value of fast food culture. Automated drink machines emerged as a consumer innovation during the growth of convenience culture in the 1960s, when automation began reshaping social habits in major Western cities and influencing modern urban leisure. Drive-in restaurants with neon signs, like one reading TikTok and Time to Eat Sandwich, became a cultural marker of United States urban growth after World War II, shaping new consumer habits and making the automobile a symbol of the era. The introduction of ether anesthesia in medical procedures in 1846 transformed medicine by allowing complex operations with far more comfort than earlier methods, enabling major advances in safety and the expansion of modern techniques. In the early 20th century, advances in studying rare genetic conditions such as Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, which can cause highly elastic skin, expanded scientific interest in unusual human conditions and helped shape modern medicine. To fight boredom and support the well-being of bedridden patients, a specially adapted piano was invented in the United Kingdom in 1935, reflecting interwar medical and social innovation and marking progress in hospital care. Created in England in 1936, Hamblin glasses marked a step forward in everyday innovation by making it easier to read in bed, reflecting the era's inventive spirit and a growing focus on comfort and ergonomics at home. With many curious inventions appearing in the 1930s, masks designed to hide emotions while playing poker show the era's fascination with social and technological improvement and its creative search for solutions to everyday challenges. Life magazine, whose publication began in 1936, as noted in the text, revolutionized photojournalism by delivering powerful visual stories about world events, shaping public perception, and documenting social change across the 20th century. Early 20th century families recorded relatives in studio portraits wearing formal clothes, a custom tied to the rise of photography like Mother and Children, 1900, symbolizing social status and marking a transition between eras. Italian immigrant families wait in a railroad station waiting room at Ellis Island around 1905, illustrating the large European migration flow into the United States that shaped early 20th century history and transformed American society. In Canada, the early 20th century brought major advances in public health and child education, with efforts like Hester House Vacation Schools in Toronto, recorded on July 29, 1913, promoting hygiene practices to limit illness among children. Milan taxis in the 1930s moved through a city in the middle of urban modernization, shaped by the rise of motor transport and economic energy before World War II's sweeping changes, linking everyday life to new technology. Italian inventor Davide Cislaghi tested his one-wheel engine in France in 1933 during heavy interwar technological experimentation in Europe that made the continent a stage for innovation and mechanical engineering advances. Mechanics work on a Studebaker automobile in a shop in the United States in 1919, the year after World War I ended, as the auto industry accelerated and social changes tied to mobility intensified. The Cadillac 516 Series 90 Cabriolet by Hartmann highlights the peak of automotive luxury in the United States in 1937, an era of technical innovation and bold design during the Great Depression, reflecting elite exclusivity and prestige. A couple poses on their 1947 Chevrolet, a post-World War II United States model from a time of industrial rebound and a growing car market that changed social habits and strengthened family road trip culture in the decades that followed. Sunset Boulevard in Beverly Hills symbolized California's rapid urban growth in the 1920s, fueled by the expanding movie industry in Los Angeles, helping turn the region into a major cultural and economic center of the United States. An icon of American film, James Dean became a symbol of youthful rebellion through movies like Rebel Without a Cause, and by the end of filming Giant in 1955, cemented his cultural image shortly before the tragic end of his story in September of that same year. Mobile carousels like the Children's Delight Carousel Wagon from 1910 were a major draw at traveling parks and fairs in the United States in the early 20th century, spreading motor-driven, family-friendly entertainment and pushing urban cultural change. A locomotive crossing the Rio Grande in New Mexico around 1915 illustrates the growth of American railroads, essential for connecting remote areas to the rest of the country, boosting regional economies, and strengthening United States expansion. Engineer camps like the one recorded at Zuni Pass in New Mexico's Sierra Madre around 1867 were essential to United States railroad expansion, advancing exploration and mapping that made coast-to-coast connections possible in the 19th century. Formed during the Alaska Gold Rush, the small community of Circle set up its fire department around 1900, showing collective efforts to provide safety amid rapid growth driven by mining in the far north. Settlers moving into New Mexico in the late 19th century faced harsh conditions and relied on log cabins for shelter and protection, a symbol of Western settlement that strengthened United States territorial expansion and deeply reshaped the local landscape. Hattie Tom represents Chiricahua Apache youth in 1899, when indigenous communities in the American Southwest faced forced assimilation policies and confinement on reservations, a decisive context for lost autonomy and changing Native traditions. The Los Angeles Fire Department appears formally organized in 1884, marking a key shift toward professional urban emergency services in the United States and improving public safety during rapid late 19th century city growth. Soon after World War I, British workers and technicians gained access to restricted areas of Big Ben, one of London's most iconic landmarks and a symbol of United Kingdom political and cultural stability during early 1920s national rebuilding. Italian daily life in the 1960s was shaped by post-war rebuilding and the economic miracle, a time of major industrial growth that transformed cities and consumer habits, cementing scooters on the streets and refreshing European lifestyle. The TWA Flight Center Terminal, described as a landmark of 1960s minimal design in New York, symbolized jet-age technological optimism and Eero Saarinen's modernist style, strongly influencing airport architecture worldwide. Shoppers gather at the counter of a department store decorated for Christmas, illustrating the peak of post-war holiday consumerism, especially in the 1960s when commercial appeal and mass shopping culture took hold in city centers. Dock workers pose on the deck of a barge moored in England during the 1890s, a time marked by heavy river traffic in the Victorian era. The wooden wheel and thick ropes show the manual effort needed for the movement of goods that powered the empire's maritime economy. Women increasingly took administrative jobs in the workplace during the 1960s, driven by the feminist movement and rising urbanization, modernizing offices, and changing professional life in major cities. Philadelphia faced severe snowstorms in the winter of 1940, showing how vulnerable American cities could be to extreme weather. The shutdown of business and transportation was striking and fueled debate about infrastructure and city planning. In 1933, Liverpool employed 10 full-time pest control workers known as rat catchers, essential for preventing disease spread in urban and port areas, reflecting the era's public health concerns and their social impact. Ferdinand Porsche presents the Volkswagen Beetle to the leader of the German government in 1935, showing collaboration between industry and authoritarian power in pre-World War II Germany, and cementing the car as a symbol of a populist push for German motorization. The end of World War II revealed abandoned strategic facilities in Berlin. On the floor of a flooded underground shelter, a military cap appears, covered in mold, in 1945. The record symbolizes the regime's total collapse after defeat, showing the physical decay of its last strongholds. Commercial aviation changed in a major way in 1930 with the introduction of the first flight attendants by Boeing Air Transport. Wearing standardized green uniforms with elegant capes, these women pioneered a profession meant to make travel feel more personal and more secure. The metal giant Geigen represented the peak of 1950s technology optimism, a robot weighing about 1,191 pounds that could carry 2 people at the same time. The machine amazed crowds at exhibitions, showing mechanical strength and the promises of robotics. The steamship Princess May was involved in an unusual incident on August 5, 1910, when it ran aground on a reef at Sentinel Island in Alaska. Low tide left the ship dramatically perched on the rocks, creating one of the most iconic maritime photographs of the early 20th century. The notorious Al Capone appears in a rare family record in Florida with his wife May during Christmas 1946. Weakened by health complications he had neglected for decades, the former Chicago organized crime boss lived his final days in seclusion. Engineers and photographers operate the world's largest camera, built in 1900 to capture a full image of a luxury train from the Chicago and Alton Railway. The colossal device required 15 men and used massive glass plates to ensure a sharp photograph. Brussels' paved streets served as the setting for the daily work of milk sellers, who used draft dogs to haul goods. This common 19th century practice shows how animals were integrated into the local urban economy before motorized delivery. The meeting between Tame Ruse Vanacha and his son Ivan in 1980 symbolizes the region's complex military path in the 20th century. While the 112-year-old father wore medals from World War I and the Russian Civil War, the son displayed World War II decorations on his uniform. A Soviet family watches television closely in 1991 during Mikhail Gorbachev's historic resignation address. Captured at home, the moment reflects the uncertainty felt by millions as the Soviet Union's collapse approached, marking the definitive end of a geopolitical era. A sign reading Kolbasas and the address, 82 Poltavska Ulica 3, along with architectural elements and the Cyrillic alphabet, points to a shop tied to selling cured meats in the former Soviet Union, likely between the 1950s and 1970s. If you enjoyed this video and want to support the channel, please use the Super Thanks tool below. Your contribution helps us keep bringing you amazing historical content. Thank you so much for your support, and see you in the next video.